Hi, I'm Craig Head with the Nebraska Farm Bureau, and with me today is Ansley Mick, who is our Director of State Governmental Relations. Ansley helps handle a lot of our activities down at the state capitol as it relates to our advocacy work. Today we're going to talk a little bit about, we're halfway through the session, Ansley. Let's start talking about tax reform and where we're at today. Where's the landscape at on tax reform right now?
Sure. We are a little more than halfway through the legislative session, and a couple weeks ago the chairman of the Revenue Committee released sort of a plan, a session plan for what he sees as the future of tax reform, I guess, in the legislature, or what he sees as kind of the path forward on tax reform this year. And unfortunately, not everything in that plan was what we have asked for as the Ag Leaders Working Group or as the Farm Bureau. Some aspects of the plan we've been involved in. We've been in discussions on how to, more effectively fund education from the state, so not all of that burden is placed onto property taxpayers. Some of those things were included. Other parts, like the income tax reform, and not that Farm Bureau doesn't support income tax relief. Unfortunately, it seems as though the plan prioritizes income tax relief over property taxes, and we're actually going to keep working with members of the Revenue Committee and state senators and try to bring everybody around and help them help the chairman of the Revenue Committee understand that property taxes are the priority to a vast majority of Nebraskans.
In that proposal, it talked about actually taking money out of the state's property tax credit fund and move that to income tax. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. So that was the line in the sand, and that was never part of the discussion. That was never part of the plan. Senator Groney, who's chairman of the Education Committee, introduced a bill to cap property taxes as a percentage of school budgets and also reduce the local effort rate, so the levy. And in that original plan, it would have cost $160 million, and he was going to pull that $160 million out of the property tax credit fund, which would have left a little close to $60 million in the property tax credit fund. And as negotiations have continued, Senator Groney said, no, if we're going to use the property tax credit fund, we're going to use the whole property tax credit fund for property tax relief. In that time, Senator Smith, who is the chairman of the Revenue Committee, suggested you take that, we would take that $60 million and use it for income tax relief. And that was a non-starter for us. So now the negotiations are happening within the Revenue Committee. Senator Groney obviously has LB 640, which is his plan out there. Senator Friesen is a rural senator kind of fighting for property tax within that committee. I know he's working really hard on our behalf, and we're just trying to prop the folks up in the legislature who understand our issue and keep fighting.
So stay tuned to property taxes and where we're going to tax reform, sounds like.
Yes.
What else we got going on in the legislature related to budget? I know they're in the budget process right now. What were some things that agriculture should be aware of?
So anytime we have a budget shortfall, obviously we get a little nervous about where the state's going to look for dollars. In the case of the Appropriations Committee led by Senator Stinner from Western Nebraska, we just saw news reports that they are looking at the personal property tax exemption for starters. We're trying to advocate for more people to pay taxes and spread it out a little bit, not the same people. But I know they're in a tight budget spot, and we're going to keep working with them to make sure things like state checkoff dollars are intact, are left intact. Those obviously belong to the producers who have funded them. And again, just look for new revenue if that has to be generated elsewhere.
Thanks a lot, Ansley. We appreciate it. Again, stay tuned for more at nefb.org.